Right. Hello. My name's Russell Murray. I've been an Agile coach, consultant, Scrum Master, Waterfall project manager, Waterfall program manager in the last 10 years. Okay. Tonight is a bit of an experiment for me because I usually do workshops. I never talk. Right. So that's one experiment. So I'm looking for some good feedback, whether that's good or bad feedback. The content itself is not controversial, but I have seen some, yeah, that's obvious kind of feedback before, and I've also had some thought leaders with a Z tell me that no, that's not how you do Scrum, so that's fine, they don't know what they're talking about. Another experiment for me, another test for me is, I'm going to be sharing some of my drawings with you. I tend to stop a lot and think, and people dive in and whatever. So the drawings are actually for me to know what I'm talking about, and they might help you follow what's going on as well. And finally, just to make it more interesting, a new bit of technology as well, which I haven't used before. So what can go wrong? If it does go wrong, I'll be blaming the technology, okay? So 3 practical ways to trigger better, great Agile behaviours. I'm actually going to record this as well, so just give me a second. I'm going to record it myself. Give it a second. So, 3 practical ways to trigger great Agile behaviours. Well, I'm going to start with, can you actually trigger Agile behaviours? Some people don't think so. Okay. I've seen it myself. 5 years ago, I saw a team transform literally overnight, actually during the day, from morning to afternoon. Couldn't believe my own eyes, but they literally went from practicing Scrum, going through the motions, bit of a user story factory, in fact, and they had a grab bag of practices and techniques. BDD was the favourite one, because it was new back then. Kanban, DevOps, you name it. And I saw them go from that in one day to exhibiting Agile behaviours. They weren't thinking about the Agile Manifesto, they weren't thinking about the principles, they weren't trying to follow them slavishly, they just started doing it. Couldn't believe it. What caused it? Well, you see. It was an interesting situation. It was one of those, see that project you've been working on for a year, you've got 4 weeks to save that project. For a lot of us contractors, that means you've got 4 weeks to save your jobs. We've all been there, right? I've been there and seen 350 people lose their jobs, right? So what I'm talking about is pressure, unacceptable pressure, but it really, really matters. I'm not advocating that. Let's get that straight. So what did the team do? Team of 10. I just joined them, so this slide takes a little bit longer. They went for lunch, reeling from the shock of what they just heard from a stakeholder who descended out of nowhere, typical seagull. And I thought, well, what did she actually say? She said, you need to start delivering. You need to prove that you can deliver. Okay, well, let's give them exactly what they want. So let's find out what they want. So we've got the stakeholder back in the room and say, what do you want? Just tell us one thing. If there was only one feature in this project, what would it be? That's easy. It would be X. Okay, can we do that? Yes, but there's some risk. How do you get 10 people working on one thing? That's interesting. Well, you're going to have to start swarming around the work, right? They had no choice. They'd gone from working on 10 user stories, one each almost, to 10 people working on one. With a backup user story as well. Don't get me wrong. But to be very, very clear on what we meant by done, to know how to finish something, that generated lots of things that other people could do. It wasn't just developing. There was some testing. There was arranging a user test. That takes work, right? So they're very, very clear in quality. And they realised in 4 weeks, they didn't have time to rely on dependencies. So they went and actually got the people that they needed to come and join their team. All they were really doing was not living with what they had been living with for the past year. So they actually made the leap from living with all the crap, which you're usually expected to live with, and gone, actually, you're allowed to go and do whatever we want. And the gloves are off. We've got a clear goal. There's no one telling us what to do. We'll just check that it's going to fit the bill. Then I looked at the risk in the work and I thought, we don't want to waste even 1 week going down a dark alley here. We want to make sure that if there's any integration work in this user story, we want to make sure that we take that out first. So they did. They went and spiked all the risk in the first user story. Fantastic. That sounds great. Terrible situation. Terrible. People in fear for their jobs. But when they look back, they talk about it being a rush, and they talk about moving with a purpose and achieving great things, right? So there's something there. That's all I'm saying, right? And your Scrum values, you can pretty much chalk them off. Courage and respect and all these things. Where's the respect? So when we got ourselves out of Dodge, we looked at what made the difference, what made us jump to light speed kind of thing. And we weren't trained, stopped focusing on practices. There's no coaching, there were no coaches. I wasn't a coach at the time, I was a Scrum Master. Nobody talked about Scrum, no one talked about BDD. We just knew what to do. And it was because they had this massive purpose and they hardly had any time, right? So they were constrained, so they had to get creative and rally around. We've all been there. So this talk is really about how do you create positive pressure. So here we go. Number 1, any product owners in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, quite a few. Okay. Product owner is customer. What does that mean? So I'm used to, I'm a consultant, I work with lots of companies now. Good for me. I'm used to coming across product owners who are usually subject matter experts in a subject, right? They probably have 0% say if they think a project should be stopped, right? Absolutely no changes of direction allowed. They have no control over the budget. So what decision-making powers do they have? The role of a product owner was originally conceived by, I'm not sure if it was Jeff Sutherland or, I think it was Jeff Sutherland, to cut across all the hierarchy and departments in a company, to actually lead a team to deliver something. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, just leave the team alone to self-organise. Well, that's BS, right? The customer is probably the only authentic, tenable, acceptable role model for a team. And that's probably the biggest, my biggest revelation, which I've had, and usually causes most angst for development teams, especially DevOps culturally type teams. Sorry. The purpose that a customer, that a product owner who acts like a customer, who can stop the project, that feels like it's their money they're spending, is that they want value for money, right? It's the ageless transaction relationship. I'm giving you some money. Can I have something for it? That leads to a couple of really simple behaviours from a customer. Whatever happens, don't turn up with 10 half-finished things at the end of the sprint. I'd like to see at least a couple of things come out of it. I would prefer it if you did one, then another, and then another, and then another. Right? Okay. And I'm going to go off and work out what I want to buy. But there are loads of voices in my ear. They're called stakeholders. There's probably technology, there's probably the company, and it's not just about users. And that's going to lead to the team, not in a nasty, end of the world scenario, but they are going to focus on flow. They're going to focus on, one or two things. It's the same kind of scenario, but it's sustainable this time because it is actually someone who isn't going to burn you because they know that you have to work with them in the next sprint, and the next sprint, and the next sprint. And they're going to go and reconcile stakeholder priorities. There's always a question mark over value over quantity, right? Absolutely, always. We'll come to that. How'd you get there? Hello, product owner. You're the customer, you're in charge. Don't abuse it, right? We're all going to let you know when you're abusing it. Let's charter what that actually means. Let's explore it with everyone you work with. You're it. You will work for her now, right? But it's a transaction-based relationship, right? It's It's not Lord of the Flies, see what flies. It's not. And as long as you don't kill the golden goose, which is the team and the company, you're okay. This is one of my favourites. Who works in a team that at the end of every sprint gets found out by real people that would use their output? 1, 2, 3. I feel like an auctioneer now. Okay, so a pattern that I see are development teams working away in a bit of a user story factory. Things get accepted, they get checked in, and they hear on the grapevine from a product owner or a UX team that carry out focus testing, for instance, or an operations team that give you a digest of a forum, what the feedback was. Now, why rob the team of the motivation? Right? Why do it? As a developer or anything, if I do something, I'm never going to be satisfied until I see whether it worked or not. No, it's second-hand information. It usually gets processed into user stories. BS, it really is. This is getting a bit ranty. So, the purpose of users and stakeholders, every week or 2 weeks, however long a sprint is to look at stuff, right? This is great. This is genius, I know. Because there's 10 of them, or 5 of them, whatever, because it's not just one, there's quite a few of them there. This is great for driving the team behaviour, because if they turn up empty-handed, it doesn't look good, does it? So it actually drives them to focus on flow, and it's completely natural. It is. So if you put them in front of your users, they will naturally focus on flow without anyone patronising them, telling them about, reduce your work in progress and check your queues. It doesn't have to be like that. Then there's, that doesn't work for me. This is a good one. Product owners are one person. We all know what bias is, right? You can argue with a product owner. You can't argue when there are 10 people who don't know how to log into your software, right? Or why did you fix that? This is the big problem over here, right? That's absolute classic. There are important impacts here. Yes, the team are motivated to focus on flow. They are. Yes, it's sustainable. It's every 2 weeks, right? But this is the kicker here. The team will be humble when they get found out, when they actually see how their software is being used. It's a very sobering experience to think that you're great at doing something and then, somebody has no idea how to start using it, right? And from that point, you realise that you need to seek insight. Not employ a UX person who's a specialist in asking questions about insight. Seek insight. You start asking questions, not just showing things. So you turn up and say, this is what we're thinking about doing next. You might not even finish something. You might just say, we did this to see what you think of it. It's a pretty rudimentary form. It's an experiment. How do you achieve that? Well, you just have the team in the show and tell, and you have users and stakeholders in the show and tell. My personal favourite is asking them to arrange the show and tell, so it's their party. You can cancel a coffee date, but you can't cancel a big party of 10 people turning up, right? Everyone needs to eat and a bit of music. And it's about taking responsibility. What's this got to do with Agile? Remember, it's all to do with purpose and time. Every 2 weeks, it's put up or shut up. And if you stop delivering, you're on a hamster wheel. If you stop delivering, they will lose trust, and so they should. If you need to refactor, it's okay. You can say to them, we're slowing down. We need to take all the pieces out and put them in the ground, put them back together again. You won't see us for a week. That's fine. You'll be released finally anyway, right? Because we're all doing Agile really well. Last one, you'd be pleased to hear. Tangible reason worth striving for. Okay. Not very pleased with this picture. It doesn't really get the thing across. Laz isn't here tonight, and I wanted to ask him this question because it was him that gave me the idea for this talk. I asked Laz, how often do people in teams know directly what happens as a result of working on the user story that they're working on? Who gets what out of it? Be a user. How does the company indirectly benefit? How does the team benefit? And how do the individuals in the team benefit? And we talked about it and pretty much put the world to rights. There was no being involved. But talking to others afterwards, there's a common pattern here that I see. User stories, all about users. We're customer-centric. Well, we kind of know how the company benefits, and we have no idea how we benefit at all. Contractors get renewed, and there's this weird performance review thing that goes on for permanent staff. Right? Visions are, flashy things that go in cupboards, stay on hard drives. Business plans are really what drive things, and they are never followed anyway. No one's ever checked. Doesn't feel very real, doesn't feel very tangible. Not like, by the way, in 4 weeks you're losing your job unless you get with it, right? So all this picture is meant to show is there are three voices at the table. Right? And if you can't work out, if you can't reconcile why you're coming into work on Monday morning, then you've got a problem. Because then you've got each individual's own view of what they're trying to achieve. Then you've really got problems. Because everyone is in denial. Everyone hates design, everyone hates operations, and we hate them. Okay, know where we go. So the purpose is the three benefits. The impact is we can make a difference. It's worth coming into work in the morning. We're not just churning out user stories. Everybody wins. It's fair. It's an interesting one. But most importantly, let's do it. So to be part of a team that moves with a purpose, knows that in a near-term situation, in 1 month from now, we're going to do this thing, and it's going to cause that to happen, and we hope that the chain of events is it benefits them in this way. And last time we had an impact mapping session at Skyscanner, and that was all about what I'm talking about actually, which is a causal link, an understandable causal link between what we're trying to achieve and what we're going to do about it, right? But impact mapping can be abused like you wouldn't believe as well. Let's have no one involved in doing the work involved in that. Let's have product managers and business people involved, all done behind the scenes. Turn it into user stories. There you go. Can you build that, please? That tends to be a pattern that I see. How do you achieve it? It's easier to do than it is to set up. You have to get the right people in the room, and you write the word success up on the wall, right? And you just lock the door. It takes a day. And you need to understand what people want, and you need to understand whether it's at odds with anyone else, and you need to align all that. Those people will become your show and tell group. They will become your stakeholders. They have agreed to a common why. And my personal favourite is every single user story that you write or work on or talk about after that, you can walk over to this thing that you produce with the stakeholders. You can go, so that, and then you can go, how does that tie into any of this stuff? I don't care who you are. I'm not doing that because that doesn't help. Why are you asking me for that? We've got a problem. Let's go right back to the basics. Why are we here? I'm done. Thank you.